The Strong Style Podcast, the revolutionary force in podcast entertainment.
Good evening. You're listening to a Strong Style Podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Todd. And today's episode, we're going to be looking back at what many people consider the downfall of WCW, the finger poke of doom.
The finger fuck up of doom.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. First of all, let me tell the story of how it originally was going to go down, okay? All right, so we have to go all the way back to Starrcade 98, where Kevin Nash gets the title shot against Bill Goldberg for the World Heavyweight title. The hottest two babyfaces in the company, Nash representing the Wolfpack, which was a hot group at the time, the hot babyface group at the time, and Goldberg being the hot singles wrestler in maybe all of wrestling at that point. So we get to the match. It's a straight up one-on-one match, and then all these interference comes in. First comes Disco and Bam Bam, and then all of a sudden Scott Hall jumps up on the ring apron and hits Goldberg with the stun gun, the taser thing, which leads to Kevin Nash powerbombing and breaking Goldberg's winning streak and also winning the World Heavyweight title.
I cried.
Yeah, as a kid, I
got emotional.
I didn't cry, but I was embarrassed because I was for sure that Goldberg would just beat Nash. But that's what we got. So the weeks after that, Nash came out and was like, look, I had nothing to do with any of that shit. I didn't know Scott Hall was going to be there. I didn't know any of this shit was going to go down. This isn't how I roll. If Goldberg wants a rematch with me, I'll be more than happy to give it to him. So they set it up for the following week, which is going to be in the Georgia Dome, which is, oddly enough, the first Nitro of 1999. And that's the main event, the big Starrcade rematch between Kevin Nash and Goldberg. Now, it had been rumored that Hogan was going to leave professional wrestling and go into the political world. Remember this?
Yes.
He was going to run for president. He was actually on the Jay Leno show, and he announced that he was going to retire from wrestling and run for president. Of course, now we all know that's a work, but we go to the Georgia Dome, and this is when Nitro was 3 hours, like Raw is now.
Ugh.
And one of the segments is, Hogan was going to come out there. He had his black suit on, the black do-rag, the whole 9 yards, and he was going to, give a send-off type of deal. Plus, you had that big main event happening. Plus, the week before, Ric Flair had defeated Eric Bischoff to gain control of the president's position of WCW. So Eric Bischoff was out of power. Ric Flair became the new president. Goldberg and Nash rematch, Hogan's farewell interview. So this was, Georgia Dome hosting 40,000 fans. This was a big Nitro. Of course, this is the same place where Goldberg beat Hogan for the world title in 98.
Yeah.
So the Georgia Dome was a huge place for WCW.
Yeah, they sold it out in no time.
Yeah. And, Goldberg being, built from Georgia and, playing for the Atlanta Falcons at the same, it's a big deal. So, but as the night goes on, the police come and they arrest Goldberg, if you remember this.
I do.
They arrest Goldberg and they say, you got to come with us. There's been some stalking and charges brought against you. Right? And he's like, what the fuck? He's like, what are you talking about? So they take him to the precinct, right?
Yeah.
And they're interviewing him all throughout the night. And he's like, this is crazy. And come to find out, it was Miss Elizabeth who brought the charges. So Miss Elizabeth is like, he's stalking me, he's harassing me, everywhere I go. I'm at the arena, he's there. I'm at the gym, he's there. I'm at the restaurant, he's there. He's just following me, blah, 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 blah. And, there basically is this story developing. So, anyway, Mean Gene has an interview with Kevin Nash, and Nash is like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I know Hogan is here tonight, and if it has to do with Miss Elizabeth, I know Hogan's involved. He's trying to screw up this match. He's trying to do everything he can to, make this a disaster. So, I tell you what, if Goldberg can't make it to the show tonight, how about I finally get my hands on you, Hogan? And he's like, I'll put the strap on the line just to get you in the ring. So Hogan comes out, cuts his interview, and he's basically he says, okay. He's like, I wouldn't do it, but you said you'd put the belt on the line, so yeah, I'm in. I'll be the first world heavyweight champion and president at the same time. He's still playing off of that deal.
Yeah.
So they keep showing the Elizabeth Goldberg thing back at the precinct, and they're catching Elizabeth in like lie after lie after lie. Like, they're like, okay, what gym were you at? And she says the name of the gym, and they're like, you do know Mr. Goldberg owns that gym. That's why he's there. And she's like, well, and they're like, as far as, the arenas, don't you guys have shows every week and he's on your show? Of course he's going to be at the arenas. He's going to be in catering. Oh, and don't they put all of you wrestlers up at the same hotel? She's like, and it's like all these things, and finally, they're like, yeah, she dropped all the charges because she was bullshitting anyway. We're going to try to get you back to the arena in time for your match. And there's only like 10 minutes left in the show. So Nash and Hogan come out, and, the fans are into it, and they do the whole shoving thing back and forth, and then, Hogan eventually does that whole finger poke, and Nash goes down, and 1, 2, 3. And now all of a sudden, it's all a big rouge, right?
Yeah.
Hogan and Nash and Scott Steiner was there. Scott Hall was there. It's like, a big fuck you to everybody, right?
Yeah.
The NWO for life. Goldberg comes out, finally makes it in his street clothes. He takes out a couple guys, but they finally get the better of him when he goes to put, I think, Hogan in the jackhammer, because Lex Luger comes out there. And Lex Luger, takes his shirt off, and he's flexing to the other members of the Wolfpack, like, fuck off, I'm going to get you. But then he turns around and turns on Goldberg, and he ends up racking him, and they handcuff him to the ropes, and Scott Hall brings out the stun gun. They stun him, they kick him, they spray paint his fucking bald head. The whole 9 yards, and apparently we have a brand new NWO Hollywood Wolfpack hybrid type of deal here. Now, according to Kevin Nash, the deal was Goldberg was going to be rebuilt. Goldberg was going to go through each member of the Wolfpack until finally he got back to Hogan to take the title back. It was going to be a couple months build up. Every month he was going to go at a pay-per-view or whatever. He was going to go through, first it was going to be Scott Hall, then it was going to be Luger, then it was going to be Nash, then it was eventually going to be Hogan. He was just going to go through everybody, right?
Right.
Well, Goldberg ended up shattering all the ligaments in his fucking forearm.
Yeah, from hitting that fucking limo like a dumbass.
From trying to apparently I don't know if the limo was supposed to be gimmicked or if he was just supposed to pick up something and throw it through the window, or if Goldberg thought it would be more impactful him breaking it himself. Either way, he ended up fucking himself up, taking himself out, and that's what fucked up the whole plan. And Kevin Nash was like incisive or insisted that if Goldberg wouldn't have done that, then this storyline would not be looked back upon negatively like it is. But because Goldberg fucked up the plans, I mean, there's no doubt about it that if they would have stuck with that with Goldberg running through everybody, it certainly would have been better, because the new Wolfpack didn't even stay together that long, because by, April, Hogan had fucking torn his knee and was out of wrestling because he had that 4-way match. It was him, Flair, Sting, and Page with Savage as a referee at Spring Stampede. And Hogan tore his fucking knee up in that, and he had to be taken out of the match while the match was going on. And if you recall, that was the match that Diamond Dallas Page won his first world title.
Yeah.
Because Flair had him in the figure 4, and Savage dropped the big elbow on Flair.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what they were going with. That's what they came up with, like kind of on a fly. But if it wasn't for Goldberg fucking his fucking arm all to hell, WCW in '99, I think, would have been completely different, because it started off good. Sold Out, he had Scott Hall in the ladder match where the taser was on the pole or on the cable, and you had to climb the ladder to get it. And Goldberg went up there and got it and fucking tased Scott Hall, and he speared him, and they jackhammered him, and boom, that was like number 1 down. But by the time, either the Nitro or the Thunder right after, that's when Goldberg just shit the bed and,
tore his ligaments in his shit.
So,
I mean, it definitely would have been less of a bitter taste left in people's mouths than, just leaving the finger poke of doom, shit stain on the underwear of wrestling.
Yeah, to hear it played out like it should have been, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's actually a very fitting and very thought out and good storyline.
Yeah, but he could also be full of shit too.
Well, that as well, but all the signs pointed to the fact that it was true, just because, Goldberg did go through Scott Hall in the ladder match, and he had a legitimate beef with all the Wolfpack members. He had a legitimate beef with Luger, who turned on him. Yeah. He had a legitimate beef with Nash, who fucked him over. And he had a legitimate beef with Hogan, who was designed as the mastermind behind this whole thing. Plus, you throw in guys that you could feed him on Monday Nitro. Like, you can feed him Scott Steiner on Monday Nitro. You can feed him the other members of the NWO, the B team, as you was, because they're still coming out there and helping with the jumping and the, attacking and whatever. So you can always feed them that.
Yeah.
But just one of those things you look back upon, and it's certainly, for a lot of people, it started the ball rolling downhill for WCW. And unfortunately, I believe that 1999 was the last consistent year WCW put good things on, because 2000 and half of 2001, when they were still a company, it was very, very few and far between good shit.
Yeah.
It
was
really
very,
was.
very dark and
Yeah. Like,
abysmal. I hate to keep using abysmal, but
yeah.
WCW in its dying days was very, very hard to watch. Not enjoyable by any means.
No, that's why I say I think 99 is the last year where you can like go back on the network and you can watch and you can still get enjoyment from week to week. Like if you watch Nitro or whatever, it's still, you know, there's some things where you're going to go, oh God, but for the most part, it's good. From 2000 on, it's like, for the most part, it's awful, and it's like one or two segments where you go, oh, well, that was good.
Yeah.
See, it's the difference. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of how I feel about modern wrestling now.
I was going to say, I kind of feel it feels like Raw now.
Yeah.
You'll watch
like,
3 hours of Raw and get like one good segment.
Well, you watch Raw, you watch AEW, you watch anything, and, you know, whether it's 3 hours or it's 2 hours, I'll watch the show, right?
Right.
And I'll point out 2 or 3 things that I thought was pulled off really good, and the rest of it, I roll my eyes and think it's god-awful.
Right.
Could that be that I just don't get it anymore? Or could it be that wrestling just sucks now? I don't know. Some people have their opinions on that. Me personally, I think that they have taken a simple concept of booking professional wrestling and made it very difficult. And I think one of the reasons for WWE is they bring in outside influencers that don't know shit about wrestling. And the main problem for AEW is they don't book at all. They don't have anybody, you know, I mean, they might have somebody that says, okay, you versus you tonight, but they have nobody that says, okay, you versus you, and this is why. That's the problem. They have the who, they have the what, but they have no why. In WWE's point, they have the who, the what, and the why, but the why just doesn't make no fucking sense. So that's what you got with modern wrestling these days.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today without getting into our usual shit on
It was about
everything.
to go there. I was letting you pull yourself out.
No, this is going to be pretty tamed. You know what? I feel like at the end of our episodes, we talk too much about how horrible. It usually goes, we'll talk about something in the past, and then we'll end it with something happening right now, and it seems like we're more passionate, more angry about the things that happen now. But the truth is, I enjoy talking about the past a whole hell of a lot more. So from this point on, I'm going to express more happiness when I talk about the past, whether it's good or bad, because it really doesn't matter. It already happened, right? And I'm going to, you know, casually talk about what goes on now, because it's no need to get real mad about it, because it's not going to change. You either dig it or you don't like it. And, you know, like I said, you know, if it wasn't for me being a consistent wrestling fan and just enjoying professional wrestling, I probably would not even remotely catch anything modern today, not even on a fucking replay. But I do catch one thing that I'll praise that I have seen lately is two things, and they both come from WWE. I'm not saying that AEW hasn't done anything good. I'm just saying that I haven't watched any of AEW, so I don't know.
I think I know one of them.
The two things that I have liked so far have been promos. And
I figured,
and
because I liked it too.
It involves the same person. One is the promo with Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman on Raw, and the other one is the promo with Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman on SmackDown. Honestly, it's gotten to the point where Paul Heyman is so good on the mic that it's a shame he doesn't look like Roman Reigns. Because if Roman Reigns could talk like Paul Heyman, holy balls, it would be great. But Paul Heyman
He would be the biggest superstar.
Yeah. And, let's talk about that for a brief second. Let's talk about the fact that Paul Heyman does promos for all these guys, basically building up their feuds for them. And that's all he does because he's the best. Is it a testament to Paul Heyman's skill at what he does, or is it kind of a shaken head moment that his guys can't fucking do that? Brock Lesnar cannot cut a promo like that. Roman Reigns cannot cut a promo like that. Like, when you think about a feud that these two have, it comes down to whoever the babyface is and Paul Heyman talking. That's what sells the feud. You know what I'm saying? And is it kind of a shame that it has to be like that because these guys either aren't there every week or they just don't have the ability to cut that promo?
I think it's a little bit of both.
But kudos to Cody and Sammy for keeping up with Paul.
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I mean, Paul Heyman came from a time, an era where you had to be good, you had to be sharp, you had to be on your toes. Like, if you wanted to even try to, like, remotely, like, be with the best.
Right.
Like, if you wanted to try to lace your boots in the same locker room as, like, your Dustys and Flairs and stuff, you had to be on, like, your shit. And, even the worst wrestler back then is still a better promo than most modern-day wrestlers now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I talked to somebody online, and they were talking about how charismatic Bret Hart was, and I just kind of squinted my eyes and go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Bret Hart was not charismatic at all. Like, if I'm the Hart family name and charismatic does not go hand in hand unless you're talking about Owen Hart.
Yeah.
But, like, he's so much better than anything today than that guy thought that he's charismatic. You know what I mean? And no doubt about it that in 1997, Bret stepped up his game with the whole Canada versus U.S. thing, which is 1997 is my favorite year in professional wrestling history. So, I feel him on that. But to think that, when I think of charismatic people, I think of The Rock. I think of Dusty Rhodes. I think of Ric Flair. I think of Steve Austin. I think of those are who I think about. I think
not Bret. I mean,
no,
not towards Bret, but no.
No,
charismatic is not Bret.
Charismatic would describe Shawn Michaels. No nonsense would describe Bret. I prefer Bret, honestly, because he looked cool. He had a cool gimmick. Think about this.
Absolutely.
Think about this. His nickname was the Hitman, and his finisher was the Sharpshooter. Did you ever figure that out?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, when he hits his target, the target's done. And that's the, no-nonsense type of wrestler that he was.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that style a lot better than over the top. But then again, it depends on who we're talking about. But, like I said, I'm kind of over just like shitting on stuff with a passion. Like, I'm still going to shit on it, but I'm just not going to, like, do it with a passion like we did in the past. So hopefully people can...
Until somebody says something to get you, get your huevos all up in an uproar.
Yeah, well, most of the stuff that I come up with that on this podcast that we talk about is because I'm a part of a lot of groups on Facebook that talk about wrestling.
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated to see other people's opinion, and some of which it strikes me so much to the point where I want to do a podcast about it, because if he says it, it must be somebody out there that actually agrees with him. So if that's the case, let me address it. That's how I kind of come up with our topics, kind of.
Yeah.
But, hopefully we can get some deep dives later on and, maybe take a whole show and dissect it and, say what we would do better or how we would book it or who we would take out, who we would add in, who should have went over, where it should have led to, shit like that. I think it'd be cool, kind of fantasy book the shit, because it's a lot easier. Maybe, just maybe, next time, we got a couple weeks, maybe we'll put together our WrestleMania card that we would book.
Of all time, or just this year?
No, like this year, who we look at the roster, we look at the champions, we look at who's hot, and we say, okay, this and this, because we got 2 days to book. So, maybe an 8-match show on a Friday and an 8-match show on a Saturday, or it might be on a Sunday. I think NXT is on Friday. And then the 2 WrestleManias is Saturday and Sunday. But either way, we can come up with those 2. And even if we want to say, you know what, I would take these NXT people and put them on the WrestleMania show, or I would take blah, blah, blah and put them on the show. I think that'd be cool. We can just kind of give us a little project to work on.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do for our next episode. We'll go more into the Royal Rumble that leads up to this year's WrestleMania. We'll also talk about the Hall of Fame a little bit more in depth. Maybe we'll have some names by then, and who we think that should have gone in or who we think will go in, and all that fun stuff. But we want to say thank you for tuning in to this lovely Strong Style Podcast episode. I'm James.
And I'm Todd, saying 1, 2, kick out.